How do I know? Well, I mean, I just, I just know. Chat is disabled for this live stream. You gotta be shitting me. I literally set it so that it should be. So now I gotta go in here, go to my content, go to the left tab, edit this, change that, save. Goodness gracious, great balls of fire. Actually, I should pull this up just so I can see how it looks. Okay. Goodness gracious, great balls of fire. Funny. Alright, everybody. God does not want me to stream this? Maybe. That's one of the possibilities. I just kind of doubt that that's what it is. Why is your banner? That's odd. That is an odd thing. Stop talking bad about God or what? What's it gonna do? No, because why is it doing that now? Dogs, chat. Okay, the chat is up. Literally. They should have made you Pope. I mean, I think I would have done a good job. I think I would have done a dandy good job. I hear voices in my head. I'll just claim it's the Holy Spirit. Okay. I have the requisite wrinkles. Peterson would make too pretty a pope. Yeah, I don't know. Have there been any hot popes? Why is the mic so echoey? It's using the wrong... Oh, is it? Maybe it's using my webcam. Wait, is it using my webcam? I have no idea. Can you explain the singularity? No, I cannot. Yeah, why would it be doing that? Audio. Okay. There. I fixed it. YouTube, it is fixed. All right, and we got our first guest, so now I'm happy. I'm just kidding. I'm not happy. Hello. Nope, they're still loading in. Hello, Brooklyn free man. Does that mean that you don't have any Brooklyn, or that you're a free man in Brooklyn, or does it mean nothing like that?
I was born and raised in Brooklyn. I was incarcerated for 28 years. I've been paroled since 2022. So it's where I come from, and I am now a free man.
All right.
So
Well,
that's what.
happy to hear it. What's up? What do you want to talk about?
Well, I mean, I want to ask you a question since you believe that creationism is dumb, right? So, do
Yeah.
you believe in the concept of eternity?
Do I believe in the concept of eternity?
Yes.
I don't exactly know what that means. So what I can tell you, what do you mean by that?
Well, eternal, the idea of there was no beginning and there will be no end.
Okay. Well, scientifically speaking, there are concepts about an eternal universe that can work. So, time as we understand it is a property of the universe. Some say it's the fourth dimension of the universe. We have space time. But when we run the clock backwards and look at today, the universe is expanding, you go backwards, it contracts. What happens is all of the forces that we know about get unified into what scientists sometimes call the singularity. And so time as we understand it wouldn't pass. You could have a universe that exists but is essentially timeless. Or you can think about it like the inside of a black hole. Our physics breaks down and we can't describe, like, time as we understand it doesn't work inside of a black hole either. So, and we know black holes exist. So, that is like scientifically the concept of an eternal universe kind of looks like that. It sits in an odd quantum state, not really, there's no entropy happening. So time as we understand it isn't flowing. Now, into the future, what'll happen? I mean, I have different ideas about that. I don't want to ramble too much. So you can tell me what you think so far.
Well, I mean, there's a thin line between eternity and infinity, right? So it's my stance, right, that logic and time and the things that we understand in the solar system, right, is in a closed system. Like logic only really works in a closed system. We only, this entire solar system is made up of a certain number of compounds and whatever it is atomically. I'm not, scientifically that that qualified to speak on it, right? But my point is this: is that if you look at our solar system and you look at our solar system, right, it is in harmony with itself, right? You know what I mean? The planet that we live on has the necessary things that we need to be able to survive. We are at the correct
Well,
distance from the sun and all of those type of things.
well, not really.
Um, well, what do you mean, not really?
So, do you just not believe in evolution?
No, I do believe in evolution. I believe in
Oh,
an evolutionary process. I
yeah.
believe in an evolutionary process. I think there's too much holes to say that evolution as we understand it scientifically is completely correct. I think it's been done by Delphi studies. There's been a bunch of really smart people that come up with the same kind of conclusion, but there's a lot of holes to say this is the reason why human beings are standing on this earth. I do believe in an evolutionary process that's clear. We could see it, right? You know what I mean? We could see it in our own generation, right? You know what I mean? In the origin of species really talks more about natural selection rather than evolution, right? You know what I mean? So you could see a natural selection in
No,
things that
that's
go on.
that's that's not how that works at all. Natural
What do you mean?
selection. Natural selection is the mechanism that causes the extreme amount of evolution that is proposed to have taken place. So, going back, you said that Earth has all this stuff for life and the sun is just the right distance. So when you put it that way, you're putting the order of events backwards. Life evolved on this planet, and it evolved by taking advantage of the resources, the chemistry, the environment that life finds itself in. So, of course, Earth has the ingredients, conditions, whatever for life because it shaped life. It wasn't like Earth was, I have these video games where you create your own theme park, like a dinosaur theme park. And before I put the dinosaurs in there, I make sure there's a pond, there's the right kind of vegetation, the fence is big enough so that they won't escape. And then I put the dinosaurs in. And you're kind of imagining life, uh, the evolution process and life that way rather than
life conforming to the environment it finds itself in. And then the thing about the sun, this whole Goldilocks zone thing, the Goldilocks zone is enormous. Mars had liquid water and oceans and weather for a long time. It lost it because Mars doesn't have a magnetic field, and so then it lost its atmosphere. But conditions for life existed on Mars a long time ago, and Mars is 1.5 times farther from the sun than we are. So the Goldilocks zone that allows life in general to exist is enormous. And there very well might be life on the moons of Saturn and Jupiter. We're going to hopefully find out in about 10 years.
Well, okay, so I want to use the idea of a like fractal geometry and talk a little, even the idea that the galaxy itself is in harmony, right? But do you believe that our biological organisms, human beings, as we are humanoids, our bodies, our biology is in harmony? Like our bodies, you know what I mean? Everything
Well,
has
I
its
mean, my mom has cancer, so what is in harmony there?
Well, I mean, cancer is a result of torn chromosomes, right? And I want to make that point.
No,
There's
no.
well, yeah, that's what happens. What happens is that there's the chromosomes are not sending out the right template to replace the cells, right? So the cells become cancerous, right? That's
That is
at its
a
basic.
metaphorical way of putting it. That is,
It's not metaphorical. It's the simplest way of saying it, right? In
well,
simple
it's
terms,
wrong.
that's what happens.
I
Well,
mean,
it's
the idea
not
that
wrong. That's
it's so simplistic that it is basically wrong, but in the most, if you could reduce it in the most absurd way, there are changes in the DNA that cause changes in cell division that become uncontrolled.
okay.
That's really not the same thing as the chromosomes get torn up or something like that. But I mean,
Well,
I'll
I
I'll
mean,
take your
basically,
point and we can move
I'm
on.
saying exactly what you say, right? So, in a dumbed down version,
In your
right? So that's what
in your
happens,
own
right? So
Brooklyn
something
way.
goes
Yep.
wrong,
Yep. It's fine
right?
with
So
me.
something goes wrong, and the template of cell replacement goes awry. That was my point, right?
Yep.
And so really, there's no explanation for why that would happen. Why would that happen? Right? You know what I mean? It doesn't really make sense. The idea of death, right? When you look at the human
Well,
body, when you look at human biology, really doesn't make any kind of sense. Now, this does happen, right? Cancer does happen, and these other diseases it does happen. And so I have to ask the question: why is that true? Why would that take place, right? You know what I mean? It doesn't benefit humankind in any kind of way, right? There's no reason. There's no benefit in it, right? You know what I mean? And everything really kind of benefits itself, right? Our bodies are absolutely, if you look at it as like a machine, right? It's almost perfect, right? It's almost perfect. But despite these things that go wrong, the diseases and stuff like that take place, and there's no explanation why. No one can explain why this happens, right? You know what I mean?
cancer?
So
We know why. We know why cancer
well,
happens.
no, we know what takes place. We know what takes place, right? But there's no answer of the cause of that, right? Like what is it? Why does one person have cancer and another person doesn't? Why does cancer exist at all? Especially when you look at our biological setup, it
Well,
doesn't. It doesn't really apply.
from from the standpoint of entropy, I think it actually makes sense that cancer would happen eventually. And if you look at organisms like us, cancer happens later in life typically. And so humans have, we live for a fairly long time. Like I could go into this for quite a while, but cancer, it's tragic that it happens, but it doesn't really matter because in the vast majority of cases, it tends to happen after a person has already gone through the ages where they would be reproducing. So they've already produced the next generation. So in terms of biology, you've already won the game. Even if, later in life you get cancer or heart disease or whatever else. But we also do kind of have pretty good ideas about what causes cancer.
No, I agree that we have the idea of biologically what causes cancer, right? We know the causation of that, right? The point I'm trying to make is that why do humans, right? Why do humans die, right? You know what I mean? Is if it's simply for the fact to go ahead and produce more humans, right? It would actually be more beneficial that we didn't die. There would be a certain amount of humans on the planet, and we would thrive in that way, right? So it doesn't really make sense unless you start to look at a more existential idea of why these things take place. I mean, if you walked into a room and seen a stack of quarters, right? Standing in a corner, you don't have to know that someone designed it or put it there. It's just kind of common sense. So when you look at these things, when you look at the harmony and the way that we have been designed, right? You know what I mean? You would have to admit that there seems to be some sort of creation, some sort of idea, right? Some sort of purpose. Right, so
we were created for
purpose.
You just said it doesn't make any sense that we get cancer, and now you're telling me we were designed with the purpose of getting cancer.
No, I didn't say that at all.
Yeah, you did.
My point is this: is that no, I didn't. If you got that, then you misinterpreted.
Did you not say that
saying.
It doesn't make sense biologically why we get cancer?
I did say that.
And then you said, but if you look at life, it makes more sense the way life is if we go with we were designed by some sort of creator. Now, the fact is we get cancer, so the implication of your logic is we were designed to get cancer.
No, okay. I understand where you came to that conclusion. No, I believe that we were designed to be eternal. Right, you know what I mean, and then something went wrong, right? So I believe that humankind is eternal.
So, if scientifically, at least, there have been an estimated about 100 billion human beings that have ever lived, I think that it would be really bad if everybody that have ever lived was still alive.
Right. Well, let me ask you a question. How long do you propose that Homo sapiens sapien has been on this planet?
Around 300. There's kind of two different answers. 300,000 years for our species, but then there's this slight change that happened in our anatomy. So they say anatomically modern human beings have been around for, I think it's about 150,000 years. So,
well, Homo sapiens sapien, right? The scientific consensus is about 30,000 years, right? So there was other humanoids.
No, not 30,000 years.
Go ahead and look it up. I promise you, right?
Well, you know what? We're gonna do it.
Sapiens sapien.
We're gonna do exactly that. So, let's see here. All right, can you see the chat GPT?
Yes. Homo sapiens sapien. Not Homo sapiens, but Homo sapiens sapien.
What the hell is Homo sapiens sapiens?
There's a difference between Homo sapien and Homo sapiens sapien.
Okay, this is probably way too small to read, so let me make that. I made it bigger, and now it doesn't fit on the screen, so give me a moment to...
Subspecies for which all modern human beings, the subspecies, break down 300 years ago. You could just read that to get it simpler.
Well, no, it's fun to be able to see it. So Homo sapiens sapiens have been around for 200,000 to 300,000 years. So there we go. I don't know, the 30,000...
70,000 years ago, modern human beings migrated out of Africa, and significant numbers started replacing or interbreeding with archaic humans like Neanderthals and Denisovans.
Hell
so
yeah.
while Homo sapiens as a species has been around 300,000 years old, the fully modern humans, Homo sapiens sapien, as we today, likely emerged around 150 to 2,000 years ago and became globally dominant about 70,000 years ago. All right, so I have to see that point. So I was incorrect in about 30,000 years. But my
only
point
one
is,
order of magnitude, yeah.
Say that again.
It's not important. So, just go ahead and tell me where you were going with that. So we've been around for, or you asked me how long we've been around. So we've been around for over 100,000 years. Therefore, what?
Well, the idea is that I believe, right, that what we are, humankind, right, was created eternal, right? You know what I mean? And through reasons I cannot explain, right? There's all kinds of religious ideas, right? So you can go into any Orthodox religion and they'll have that explanation. Now, I tend to agree with some of them, right? You know what I mean? Especially the Christian version, right? Because the truth of the matter is that I have an existentialist idea, right? You know what I mean? That we're not just placed here by chance. We didn't come just by chance, because if that was the case, then we would simply just become sociopaths, right? Because really, at the end of the day, if we live our life for 70 or 80 years and then just, just no longer exist, why not just be a Viking? Why not just do whatever is most beneficial to the individual?
Because
Obvious.
we're a social species, and if everybody's a psychopath, then the psychopath never gets what they want. Because a psychopath says, hey, I'm going to take whatever I want and you can't tell me nothing. And then the psychopath's neighbor says, well, that's funny because I have that same exact idea. And then the psychopath goes, wait, no, what? You can't do that. So, I mean, like, there have been some pretty rigorous studies and simulations done on I don't know what you call it. It's not social evolution or anything like that. But people like Robert Trivers and many others have come up with models that accurately describe how a social species like us more properly flourishes. And it's by exhibiting characteristics that are very fundamentally human, like empathy, reason, and all kinds of other things.
Right. And that's my point, right? So I think there's a natural law that these things, empathy, and I wouldn't
Yeah, but
really
it's
say reason.
it's describable evolutionarily. There's no need to appeal to any kind of creation.
I mean, I disagree. I mean, I fundamentally disagree there, because really, if you look at Nietzsche wrote about the Superman, right, the Ubermensch, right, and really, what that really is
Yeah,
just an anti.
Nietzsche was a crackpot who had
disorder.
syphilis.
Well, but he also had he was an absolute genius, right? That had some very
He was
very real
probably pretty
ideas.
smart, yeah, but I mean,
Yeah, he was definitely pretty smart. And my point is this. My point is that what happens is that he was a nihilist, right? He was a
yeah.
nihilist, and really, the theory of evolution, the idea of evolution, is really a nihilistic way of looking why, as an explanation of why humankind is on this planet.
Just
You know what I
because
mean? It
there's
really is.
just because there's no teleology doesn't mean you have to be nihilistic. That none of that logically follows.
Well, okay. So what do you think happens when you pass away?
Not much.
Okay, so that's nihilism
I think your
at its
subjective
most
I think
simple.
your subjective experience ends.
Okay, so all right, so that's nihilism at its most common, the lowest common denominator. It
Okay?
means nothing. This life means nothing. If that's the truth, if
That's
our
not
experience,
true. Life means everything because it's all you got. If I thought I was going to have to live an entire other eternal life, I'd just die right now. Hurry up and get to the point.
I mean, really, bro, you kind of just proven my point, right? You know what I mean? So people, I think human
No, I
beings
did
are
the
either
opposite of prove your point.
no,
Very
no,
much the
because
opposite. No, I said that this life is all you got. As the philosopher Sublime once said. And so therefore, this life is the most valuable thing that I could ever have. Whereas if I thought I was gonna go live forever with great great Mima and unicorns and Jesus and whoever else is up there, then I would just I would just do a backflip off of City Hall and go hang out with them.
yeah, but there's a foundational problem to that, right? You know what I mean?
Which
People
is
don't. Well, I mean, it would lead me down a Christian track, and I'm trying to avoid that because, to be perfectly honest with you, which what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to have my spirituality and the idea of evolution come together because I do
Mm.
not think that God did not use evolution as a tool in creating human beings, right? You know what I mean? I really don't. I think that he used evolution as a tool to get to where we are, right? And I still think that humanity is in an infantile stage. We really are as living beings, and the way that we live in a very, very infantile stage. And I don't think we were designed to live the way that we are now, right? I mean,
What
sin
are
kind of
we?
entered the world.
What are
Well,
we
I mean, I
supposed
think
to live like?
I think we were supposed to live eternally, right? We were supposed to live created eternally. A limited number of people. I agree with you. You wouldn't want to be around billions and billions and billions of people, but I think there was a certain amount of souls that were created, and we were supposed to live eternally. That didn't happen. There's a lot of explanations why that didn't happen. I agree with some of them. I disagree with others. But my thought is that we're really kind of in the dark ages of humanity. We are in an infantile stage. We don't know nothing. Really, we don't know anything. I mean, we can measure some things
We
scientifically and
just
stuff like
we
that.
know
But
so much more than we did only like 100 years ago. There's actually this
right, right,
fascinating phenomena about information, and quite a lot of information is just useless. It's like somebody like all the crap you ever do online, that information exists in some capacity, and then after you die, that information isn't really helping. But about every 2 years, the amount of cumulative information that humanity has developed doubles. That's been happening for the last several decades, and it's going to keep happening. So, 2 years from now, all of the cumulative information that human beings have gained in its entire history will have doubled in only 2
right.
years. And yes,
And I
there's a lot of cat memes in there, but there's also all of the scientific data that is published every single year goes along with that as well. So
All right. So
the idea that we don't know much is just no.
Well, okay, so I agree with you. I agree, and this is a phenomenon that's really kind of unexplainable. If we've been on this planet for what would they say 300,000 years, that growth in information has only really started since the Industrial Revolution, right? I mean, the gains that we've made, right? The gains that we've made from the beginning of the Industrial Revolution to this time and period, which is a very short period of time, like 150 years, right? I mean, it's incredible, right? The gains that we made. And
Yeah.
so why didn't we make all of those gains all throughout the 200 centuries, right? You know what I mean? That we were here. It's really, really unexplainable, right? The ideas
No,
that we have now.
it's very explainable actually.
Okay, so why didn't we have this? Why didn't we have cell phones in the 14th century?
Well, it makes it a little bit trickier when you give a hyper specific example like that. But the reason we didn't have cell phones in the 14th century was because we couldn't capture and trap electricity. We knew absolutely nothing about refining metals to the degree that you would need to. We didn't have industrialized, like, wide scale manufacturing. I mean, they did for some things, like manufacturing, I don't know, I guess cannons and metals and horseshoes and certain things. But the biggest problem, like, fundamentally, is two things. It's one, ignorance. They just didn't know anywhere close to as much stuff as we know today, and a lack of technological know-how. And that can only happen once things that feed off of each other and follow one from the next happen. Like, if we took the 100 smartest people on the planet today, not even that, because some of the smartest people might like if we took 100 of the smartest, like, electrical engineers or something and put them in the 1400s, they wouldn't be able to do jack shit, because they wouldn't have the tools or the technology to even begin to construct anything that they could use. So the whole thing about, I think we can actually describe this fairly simply. We can go to that thing about information accumulating generation after generation. First, you need enough people. You need a complex enough society where you can create enough capital to make it so that somebody can be a scientist or an engineer for a living instead of a subsistence farmer. And then you need some sort of scientific or academic apparatus that accumulates knowledge over time. And then all those things just need to continuously build more and more complex and passing on of more and more information. And then that's the only way you can ever get to a civilization that is that complex.
Well, I mean, but again, I have to go back that technology has really only grown since the Industrial Revolution. You can go back 5,000 years and look at the Greeks, right? They were everything that you were talking about, right? The Western world is built on Greek thought, right? So you had some really, really intelligent people with a very, very complicated and complex society. Right, you know what I mean. So why didn't they have the ability to come up with these ideas? Right? Why is it popped up in just the last 150 years? And I mean, we're talking about 5,000 years ago. And we read their books, we have their literature. Our entire society is built on their ideas.
So I feel like
you know what I mean. So
I think I can explain this pretty simply. First of all, refer to everything I just mentioned with the arc of history and progress and how it has to be cumulative. But also, it's not like people of today are fundamentally different than people of the past. If we teleported, Archimedes, he was one of the smartest people from the ancient world, but he didn't have an iPhone 16 Pro Max. He was a fucking loser, right? If we teleported him as a young kid or a baby or whatever to the present day, Archimedes would be able to grow up and do any kind of thing that anybody today could do. But because he was probably just innately very smart, he would go on to be wildly successful. If you took one of us and teleported, if you took Albert Einstein and teleported him back to ancient Greece as a young lad, he would not grow up and develop general or special relativity, because the math, the technology, the accumulated knowledge that got him there didn't exist, because Michael Faraday hadn't been born and done anything yet. Isaac Newton hadn't been born and done anything yet. James Clerk Maxwell, same thing. And some other people that influenced Einstein, whoever the hell they might be.
Well, all Einstein's work, I mean, Archimedes was the founder of mathematics on this planet, right? So he was the foundation. Archimedes really was the founder of mathematics and his ideas, his concepts. And a lot of them were really, really wrong, but that's besides the point. You know what I mean? My point is that, so you didn't really answer my question. You really didn't answer my question. You had some very, very intelligent, resourceful people with a complex society, which you stated was a requirement to be able to get this information and to be able to grow, right? You know what I mean? So
yeah.
If you look at
have you ever played Minecraft before?
I'm not a gamer at all. No.
Well, for you pro gamers out there, you have to start out punching trees. You can't just build an ender portal, or not an ender portal. What the hell is it called? The thing at the end. I already forgot what it's called. But you can't just do that right away. You have to start out punching trees. Anyways, go on.
Well, I mean, again, I mean, it's like confounding to me why there's been such a huge technological boom since the Industrial Revolution. It's really since the steam engine. We went from the steam engine to we have rockets. You know what I mean? Like we've made, and historically we've made a growth, right, in technological in technological ideas, right, and even in sociological ideas that is remarkable when we look at human history.
I think I can help you. I think I can help you out here with this. So, yes, there's been all kinds of technological advancements. So have you ever seen pictures of the very first car?
Yeah, yeah, the steam engine car, yeah.
It wasn't steam engine. Carl Benz's car had an internal combustion engine, but it was three wheeled and it was just a piece of shit, right? Okay, Leonardo da Vinci never had a car, but we in today's society have cars. But wait a minute, the original car got probably 3 gallons to the mile, had a top speed of a fart, and didn't even have, it wasn't even enclosed or anything. Whereas today, you can get even the biggest shitbox car is an absolute marvel. So, why is it that the very first car couldn't go 200 miles per hour and had adaptive cruise control?
Well, that's my exact point. So from
It's
the
not your point,
time
though.
that we had the first
It's
car,
it's not your point. You're
no,
saying they
because
didn't
look at
have
the minute da
technology. We
Vinci.
have technology. You can't explain that. Well, actually, the technology we have, even the technically the same thing, a car 140 years ago or whatever, was garbage. The reason we have the cars we have today is because of exactly the same thing I've been lining out that you kind of hand waved away. The accumulation of technology, of know-how, wisdom, and whatever, and just more people and more ideas as well. That does really explain it.
No, it doesn't, because you brought up a good point, right? If you look at Leonardo da Vinci and his ideas, and I mean, he literally like had schematics on machinery, right? But it didn't it didn't it didn't like exponentially change like it has since the car. I think it's a good example, right? So you go from the first shipbox car that was created 140 years ago to the vehicles we have now, right? So it's tremendous, right? And then you have Leonardo da Vinci, who was absolute fucking. He was a genius. He came up with all kinds of ideas, right? You know what I mean? He was an incredibly intelligent person, right? You know what I mean? But yet his ideas didn't change for I don't know when Leonardo da Vinci was alive 500 years ago, whatever it was, right? You know what I mean? Why was it such a small increase, right? So some of his ideas, like he invented like a helicopter looking type of thing, right? He had like some flying machine looking things, right? You know what I mean? He understood aerodynamics at that time, right? You know what I mean? We had the ability to make wings, right? The first plane was a single wing, right? You know what I mean? That's basically what it was. I have to understand the idea of aerodynamics. And Da Vinci had a very clear concept of aerodynamics. Yet we didn't get a plane until what was the 18th century, or whenever the friggin' the Wright brothers were around. They
19,
were like the first one.
1916, 13. No, it
Okay,
was
so
1909. It's either 1909 or 1906. I always forget.
all right. It's very, pretty short time ago, right? So Da Vinci understood the idea of aerodynamics, right? There was resources where you could build a wing, right? You know what I mean? But yet we didn't do it, right? It didn't happen. So it's unexplainable why. It doesn't make sense. I mean, I understand your point,
Because,
right? You know what I mean?
like, dude, literally, if you took the 100 smartest inventors today and threw them back 500 years ago, they could maybe make like a cool wagon or something like that, but they wouldn't be able to really invent something extraordinary. The best they could maybe do is figure out how to like create some electricity out of some electrolytes and maybe make the world's crappiest light bulb, but there would just be they just wouldn't have the accumulated stuff to be able to do anything
Okay, well,
fantastic. I
explain to
got
me why.
explain. I
No, I'm sorry.
I did so many times.
No, you didn't. No,
Oh,
what you did
jeez.
was, no, you came up with a kind of simplistic answer, right? It's simple, right? What you're saying is understandable, but simple. Maybe the way I was explaining the idea of existentialism or cancer, right? You know what I mean? Like I don't really have the technical answer, and I don't believe that you have the technical answer. And I'm not questioning your intelligence. Obviously, you've thought about these things and you're educated and you're able to articulate ideas, right? But you still
Let's try.
didn't give me an answer, my friend.
No, I did. We're gonna try this one more time, and then I gotta move on because there are a lot of people waiting. Why was the first car not as good as today's modern cars?
Are you asking me that question?
Yes.
Because it was a little more primitive than what we have now.
Yeah, but that's the question. Why?
Because the concept of the car was brand new, right? Like we improve on things that we have. Right.
So why was the technology of people from the past so much different and worse than the technology we have today? For the same reason.
No, because I bring up the point of Da Vinci. Da Vinci designed a wing. Why didn't he build on it? Why didn't
Carl Benz invented the
build
car. Why didn't he invent the Bugatti Veyron?
Yeah, I understand the point that you're trying to make, but again, I think you're kind of ducking the question. I'm gonna let you move on. Thank you for the conversation. I appreciated it. Right, I really did. Have a good evening. I'm gonna listen to you and your guests for a little while, but I'm gonna go ahead and step down. Have a good night, brother.
Go Knicks, and not because I'm a Knicks fan, but because I hate the Celtics.
There you go. we agree on one point.
Yeah.
Have a good day, brother.
You too. Oh man. Jeez. Okay. There we go. Da Vinci equals W. Da Vinci didn't even have Instagram. What are you talking about?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Squash, what's up?
Hey, so I see that you have up creationism is dumb. So what brought you to that opinion?
So what that more specifically means is young Earth creationism. I think young Earth creationism is on par with thinking the Earth is flat. We just know that the Flintstones wasn't a documentary and that the universe is only 6,000 years old.
Okay, I mean I agree with that. I agree that the Earth is not flat and it's backed up by science.
Mm-hmm.
The Earth is definitely I mean it's much more older than 6,000 years old. Exactly how old? I know that through carbon dating we have estimated that the Earth is 4 billion years old, but carbon dating has been, I mean,
4.5, but yeah,
time, so
who's counting? Carbon date? Yeah, we don't tell how old planets are by carbon dating. Carbon dating that'd be like trying to measure the width of the United States with a ruler. You know, you'd conclude, wow, it's only a foot long. You know, but that's just obviously not how it works.
Or radiometric dating, but I mean,
yes, yeah, radiometric
they
dating
could still be inaccurate, so we truly don't know.
No, we are extremely confident because we know how to test radiocarbon dating to other. So like, this concept should make perfect sense to you. If you try to compare two different data sets and they correlate, then that's an indication that they are related in some way, right? There's a causal connection between them.
Right.
Now, correlation doesn't always equal causation. That is true. But if you can demonstrate that, then you have positive evidence of it. What we do with radiometric dating is, for example, for carbon dating, we can use that one first. What they do is they take a sample and they carbon date it. Then they compare that to tree ring data that they have for the area. They compare that to sedimentation layers that have accumulated, like annual sedimentation layers that have accumulated in an area, and a few other techniques. And or what they'll do is they'll combine all of those things, plus they're dating it from a site where they just know how old it is, right? Because it's a temple from a particular era in history, so we just know how old it is, and they find that all of the techniques here, the tree rings are telling us it's about that old. The carbon dating is telling us the same kind of number. The sedimentation layers are telling us the same number. And they all correlate to the age of the site archaeologically. And then there are other radiometric dating techniques that they do that for, like Pompeii. They've dated the ash there, or volcanic material. I don't know if they do it with ash specifically, but they get it right to 79 when Vesuvius erupted. 79, right? Yeah, 79. Yeah. And well, I mean, that's without rambling too much. There's an example.
I appreciate the example. Um, and you say, I think you have up there too that says that there is no God. What would be your evidence of a God if there was one? Because we truly don't know. I mean, yes, there's no
Mhm.
evidence of God, but at the end of the day, we don't know what happened before the Big Bang and what happened before that, how the whole entire universe came to be. So we just have, maybe it's much more complex than what we, than what we would like. Because that's like saying an animal. I'm sure when animals look at buildings, they don't say, well, that probably, was created by a human. No, they just think probably it's always been there, just because they don't have the intellect to be able to understand
Possibly,
how it was created.
but God is a positive claim, and when somebody else doesn't have the explanation for something, that's not positive evidence for you. You need to come up with something new, or that precludes other things. And existence doesn't preclude a non-supernatural explanation. A Big Bang doesn't invoke or preclude a non-supernatural explanation or anything like that. I have different, kind of two different answers for evidence of God. One kind of seems like a cop out, but it really isn't. So, what would the evidence for God look like? I'm not sure, but I know that God knows what that evidence would be, and this God hasn't told me or shown me any of that evidence. And if you want to invoke, no, the evidence is there, you just reject it. It's like, well, okay, I'm not lying. And the whole point was God would make it so that I know it to be true, which would mean God is engaging in divine hiddenness. And if the penalty for that is eternal suffering, then God, I'll see God next Tuesday if that's the case. But the other thing is, I can imagine lots of things that would convince me, but that's not the same thing as what is certainly, how do I want to say this? That's not the same thing as proving it sort of in general, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I appreciate the input. Um, I mean, I kind of have to agree, and I understand that people say, well, we shouldn't go to God whenever we don't understand how the universe came to be, but I just can't wrap my head around thinking that the universe just one day, boop, popped up. I'm sure that it's more deeper than that, and there's a more uh, better explanation for how everything came to be. But the Big Bang wasn't the initial part of how the universe came to be. There was something before that, and
Well,
I mean,
maybe
to this day,
not.
we don't have an answer. But if you look at everything in the universe had a creator, which was the Big Bang. Um, even on Earth, you for there to be a tree, there needs to be seed. So everything comes back down to having a creator. Everything on this Earth has been here because it was placed by something else. So I just can't see there being just randomness and then all of a sudden the universe coming to be. I just can't wrap my head around that.
Well, I mean, I don't agree with the way you're putting it there. I, I don't know what to say exactly. I do agree that the idea of like where the hell the universe came from or whatever doesn't really make any sense, but I think we can kind of realize, if we just think about it, that however it happened, it would be causally very different from the way things ordinarily happen today, right? So like, for example, if it was 300 years ago and we imagined how we would get to the moon, nobody would be able to describe to you a rocket ship, probably, because all they had access to was whatever their ideas and thoughts about how the world works. And so when they tried to imagine it, that's all they could come up with. There are really hilarious drawings from the turn of the 20th century where people were asked, what will the world look like 100 years from now? And instead of people driving cars, they imagined everybody would float around in their own personal hot air balloon or blimp. Because to them, they were like, yeah, that's technologically the new thing and the coolest way to travel around. The idea that everybody would have their own car never came to them, right? So I give these examples going back. Whatever is the explanation for how the universe got to, began existing in the state we see it today, is going to be radically different than anything else we understand. And there are some scientific ideas about it, like quantum fluctuations and virtual particles. Don't ask me anymore because I'm not that guy. But that doesn't. It's not. Even if we didn't have that, again, that doesn't lead us to therefore something magical.
No,
happened.
yeah, I understand that, and I'm not trying to put it that way. I just, you know, me
I know.
personally,
Yeah.
myself, I'm an agnostic, just because I just don't know. I don't know, and I don't think we're gonna know in this lifetime. I think it's just way too complex. Maybe like in a few hundred or
No,
what?
that's not true. You're an agnostic because you love to sin and you reject the truth in your own unrighteousness. So
Oh yeah, that's why.
yeah.
Oh man. No, I just I don't, I've read the Bible multiple times, and it just, when it says certain things I don't agree with. I'm not going to go into the Bible, but
Right.
you know, saying, the earth was created in 6,000 years, and just a lot of negative things in there. I just don't agree with that particular God, but there's hundreds of other gods and a lot of other beliefs that people all around the world believe, but at the end of the day, we just don't know. So, um,
Yep.
it's definitely complex, and hopefully, I would love to know how what happened before the Big Bang. Hopefully, we get to know in this lifetime.
That'd be pretty dope. It
Yeah.
doesn't sound like something we ever could know, though, because I don't see how, just from the standpoint of information, if everything gets unified, then how could you ever understand how that information was arranged previously? I feel like that might fundamentally just not be knowable, but I don't know. Ask a physicist, I guess.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll know one day. But yeah, I'll step off so I could let someone else hop on the platform. I appreciate you giving me the time to come up here.
You're welcome.
All right.
Shit, I wonder if I gotta look at my phone here real quick, everybody, and then I'll bring up the next guest. Because I don't know. Oh yeah, it looks like, okay, I still got him. All right. Anyways, holy shit, there's so many people waiting. And it does not sort these by who's been waiting the longest. So we're just gonna go with, damn it, Bobby. Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, what's up?
What's up? Sorry, I didn't mean to join.
Oh, all right. I know Loki's been waiting for a long time. Yeah, this rearranges people in such a stupid way. Loki might not be there anymore. That's how long they were waiting. Do I have a YouTube channel, Spectra, however you say that? Yeah, it's called Planet Peterson. And I can't disconnect Loki. Why? Why are you doing this to me? Really? I can't. Oh, I can do it on this end. Okay. Well, who else? I think maybe this person's been waiting a while.
Hey, Peterson.
Hello, Goat Star. What's up?
Hey. So I want to talk about the top line you have there. There's no evidence for God. Do you think philosophically you can make an argument for God and that could be evidence?
Do I think you can make a philosophical argument for God and that could be evidence? I don't really think so. I don't think an argument proves anything really other than the argument itself, unless you have empirics that you can correlate what you're talking, like unless the terms correlate to something empirically, or or like you could, in a weird kind of sense, analytically prove that God exists. So like by definition, if I don't know, how would this even work? But like you could say that, well, if what God is all perfect, then that means that God can't do anything immoral, because that's what being omnibenevolent or perfect would mean. Then by definition, God is that. And I was like, okay, by definition, all ding dongs are zip zops. So therefore they exist? No. So that's how I feel about it. Anyways.
Right. So like, and I forget the doctor's name on this. I think he's pretty revered, like I think he argues what Aristotle used to argue. He had the 5 waves of proofs, and it was the unmovable mover, I think, right? And I think it follows just a contingency argument. How do you?
I think
this God is not prescribed to any religion. By the way, I'm not saying he's all loving. I'm just saying there's a God, and I guess with a mind that created all of us. So how do you feel about that contingency argument? I think Professor Edwards is his name. I don't know if you know him.
I don't know who you're talking about. I mean, the prime mover argument was pushed into modern theology most by Aquinas, I believe.
Right. Yes.
But did Aristotle? I think Aristotle believed in gods. Socrates doesn't, and he drank hemlock because of it. But anyways. Aristotle believed in gods because he thought man had a rational soul, and that was imbued in us by gods. But what do I think of the prime mover argument? Yeah. Like it may be logically consistent, but
right.
Another thought I have about this kind of stuff is if we had somehow invented empirical science before we invented philosophy, or before we, like, if we started, some people say science just is philosophy, and then other people say, well, if you're using your brain, you're doing philosophy. So it's like, okay, well, then it has to start with philosophy first. So if we started doing the scientific method before we started coming up with deep philosophical arguments for things, we'll just say it that way, then I don't think anybody would have thought of something like a prime mover, because I was just talking to the guy before this, and you probably, okay, good, I think you heard that. Our concept of cause and effect in the beginning of the universe is almost certainly nothing like what we understand it now. And for people that lived thousands of years ago, or even hundreds of years ago, there's nothing you can fault them for coming up with an argument like that. But I just don't think somebody would have come up with that argument if they knew what we knew scientifically now, but were kind of sat around and never considered, from whence cometh universe, methinks perchance. I don't think
Right.
it would have gone that way.
Yeah.
Or I don't
So
think
like,
people would have come up with that.
do you think it's analogous to comparing? It's sort of God in the gaps in a way. It is logically consistent, like how you said, if you use a contingency argument. But like back then, people used to say, if it's lightning, it's Zeus, because that was their only explanation. They didn't know, so they would ascribe those
Yes.
phenomena to a god. Do you think that's analogous to sort of this situation with contingency?
Yeah, kind of. Contingency and prime mover they're not the same thing. A contingent thing is just something that could be some other way. A non-contingent thing is something that could not be in any other way. So there's this really good YouTube channel called Unsolicited Advice. And the guy actually, I watched it and I don't remember anything from it, but he has a video that came out not that long ago where he says that Aquinas's prime mover argument is actually one of the most misunderstood arguments because it doesn't literally mean it's the argument from motion or whatever. And again, I don't remember, so I'm going to stop giving a summary, but he says everybody kind of misunderstands the point of it. So instead of listening to an idiot like me, maybe go listen to an idiot like him on this thing, because I don't really remember what the general point of it was. But I do stand by what I said earlier about nobody. I don't think people would have come up with that if they knew scientifically what we know now.
Okay, I got you. Like, so, and this is the final point. You don't think just because something is logically consistent, like it doesn't have to be real, right?
Yeah, it doesn't make it true because I could create, like for logical statements, we have valid and then we have sound. If it's valid, it just means the conclusion follows.
Yeah.
So if I said all ding dongs are zip zops and all zip zops are, then that means that all ding dongs are, that logically follows. Yeah. But there's no soundness in this. And yeah, when it comes to people talking about an eternal mind and things like that, I have some thoughts about that where it becomes completely.
Think soundness needs empiricism to it?
I don't see any other way. I'm open to it being demonstrated in some other way. I mean, like mathematically, but we don't form mathematical logical deductions, not exact. I mean, a proof in a way kind of is, in a sense. Yeah. So like analytically, you can demonstrate that something is true, not necessarily with analytics. But if we're talking about something other than just definitions of words, which don't mean all that much to me, I'm a nominalist, but something else, I guess like mathematically, that's the closest you get. But yeah, I don't understand how you can demonstrate soundness without empirics. So somebody who's who are the people that were the
B.
Go ahead.
You're saying like if A is greater than B, and then B. How does it go? A is greater than B, and B is greater than C. That would mean A is greater than C. Like that math you're saying, logically consistent like that.
I don't know. I don't know what I said that you're using that as a reference to.
Because you were saying, because I asked you, do you think for something, even if it's logically consistent, you said it has to have empiricism. There's no other way besides like math. And like math would be like A bigger than B and B is bigger than C, so A is bigger than C as well. Is that like what you're meaning by math or no?
Yeah, something like that, like a mathematical proof or whatever. I don't think integers really exist or anything like that. So what does that mean? But yeah, like think you can demonstrate something true, I guess, by definition. But I'm talking about proving that something exists or that something is real, as part of the universe, whereas definitions aren't that kind of thing, and I don't think numbers are that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
Definitions, that's different. Numbers. Why don't you think numbers are?
Why
Like if
don't
you
I
have an
think
apple,
numbers are real?
yeah, like if you have one apple, I mean that's different from two. So what's the
Mhm.
difference here?
Well, the difference is that for me, there are some people that are Platonists with regard to this, that numbers exist in some sort of abstract realm or whatever.
Yeah.
And people think that about logic too. And I find that to be very bizarre. I don't pluck from some other realm the concept of logic or a number when I describe something that is in front of me. That's the order of events is backwards there. Instead, those things are just reference to something that is really in front of you. So I essentially think that math is basically a language. And actually,
Okay.
with regard to certain things in math, like Boolean algebra, it's actually described the rules for the way the mathematics works is actually described as a kind of grammar. Funny enough, so
Okay. Hey, it was a good talk. Thank you for letting me up, man. And I'll see you, man.
you're welcome. Dude was nice. Yeah, people are waiting. Sorry, I have no idea who's been waiting the longest. So,
Hello.
what's up, Monstercraft?
I was just wondering, do you talk like politics at all? Because I just, with
Not
all the
very
echo
much.
chambers and stuff. Because I know I had like a small debate with Professor Dave, and you answered like a question I had on your YouTube live a few days ago. I'm like really surrounded by a community that shares a lot of similar opinions with me. I'm just kind of wondering if I could hear your opinion.
Yeah, we can go for it.
Okay, so I remember, like I said a few days ago, maybe a week ago, I asked, your opinion on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which you labeled as a genocide, and I'm just kind of curious where that is being derived from.
What's where? Okay, do you mean how did I conclude that what's happening fits the definition of genocide, or where am I getting my term from?
How you came to that conclusion.
Oh, sure. So what in your mind, what would have to be done to qualify as a genocide?
So I guess overall the intent to eradicate an entire or population or group of people.
Okay, that's not the definition. The definition says in part or in whole. So they wouldn't have to complete because even the final solution wouldn't have counted as that because there still are Jewish people alive today. But it absolutely was. And there have been many others. The what happened in Rwanda, what happened in Turkey. Like 3 different times they had the Assyrian, the Armenian, and I think there might be another one right about the same time as well. So it's in whole or in part, and the actions have to be deliberate with that goal in mind. And I mean, we could talk about what's been happening for the last year and a half, but they're literally making the effort now to annex the West Bank and then completely clear Gaza of all civilians.
I guess something I kind of also wanted to bring up was what started this all, right? October 7th, and before that, the thousands of rockets that Hamas has been sending into Israel. Like
what about IDF snipers going up to the fence in Gaza and shooting people in wheelchairs in the head intentionally?
Personally,
I would take vengeance against people if they did that to my family. Like the idea that it started on October 7th is just absolutely batshit crazy.
Personally, I haven't heard that, but once again,
Yeah, it's called the March for I don't remember, but there was this period, and it was going on for several months. The people in Gaza would just go up to the fence, and they would just have picnics there. And it was supposed to be this sort of like peaceful assemblance because they live in basically an open air prison. A lot of people have described it as a concentration camp. And so they started doing that. And then there had been instances where, young people like threw rocks at IDF soldiers that they saw on the other side or whatever. And then what started happening was, snipers started deliberately targeting the elderly and people in wheelchairs and whatever else, over and over and over again. I'm not sure if that was the event where that American journalist was killed or if that was a different one and they just completely lied about, what happened. But do you know that no food or electricity or anything has been allowed into Gaza since like April or March? What is it? It's either April 2nd or March 2nd. I think it's April.
Yeah.
Right. So what would that, and they have deliberately bombed food aid convoys that had a pre-planned route and then had permission to go in there. And they massacred an entire convoy of ambulances and then literally buried the evidence and lied about it. But we can just take the blockade. What do you think that blockade is going to do?
I guess a big issue though that a lot of people don't fully recognize is how, right? I think a lot of Israelis as well as myself don't believe that Palestinians are the problem. I think it mainly surrounds around Hamas. And a lot of these aid trucks and such have only ever really gone to Hamas. They don't treat their citizens like people they care for.
Even with this most uncharitable take on it, I've never heard anybody bring this up. It makes zero sense from the perspective of Israel either. So, who has the hostages?
Hamas.
Okay. So what do you think's going to happen if you prevent Hamas from getting food?
I think the
hostages are going to die. And what the heck do you think happens if you drop more bombs than were dropped in World War II on a small area? The hostages are going to die. So if you're an Israeli and you give two shits of a fuck about the hostages, then how are you sitting here complaining? It's pretending. I don't think you're doing this because I don't think you thought about it, but the propaganda machine over there definitely, they're just making up bullshit lying talking points. If they care so much, they say that's the only thing they care about. And I don't give a, or whatever. So Hamas has the hostages. Hamas takes the food. You've done a siege and a blockade, so they're not getting any food. So in the end, the only thing they care about, if they cared about the hostages, they would let it in. Because if you're an Israeli and all you care about is the hostages, then who cares if Hamas takes all the resources or whatever? Because they don't care about that. They're trying to brutalize and terrorize these people and make that place just unlivable for them. I mean, the way things are right now, people are saying it's going to take 30 years to even just to clear out all of the destroyed buildings, not to rebuild it, just to clear it out. And it's probably going to take over a century to get rid of all the unexploded ordnances. It's just, I don't know. I don't know what else you call it. Maybe we'll end up only calling it an ethnic cleansing. But
Okay. My question, I think I want to know more about, your opinions on, the beginning of this all, because hasn't Hamas stated that they want to
in the
kill
80s,
every-
that was their original charter. Yeah. And those people are dead. And I don't sit around making excuses or apologies for them. I think they're disgusting. I would have no problem with their every member of it being voted out, eradicated, whatever. But like literally, I wish I don't have it saved, but there was recently a statement that Hamas actually published about the current state of things and the ceasefire. And what they said was that they rejected that original charter. And they were also saying things like, it's extremely obvious that the actions that are being taken against the Palestinian people right now are going to cause the only thing it could possibly cause is wide-scale global anti-Semitism, because people can see for their own eyes the just absolute slaughter of 40, 50, 60,000 people. We don't know how many it actually is, but it's at least 40,000 people. And so it's like, oh, wait a minute. What's with all this wisdom being imparted by this horrible group? Well, also, even in the Trump administration, which Donald Trump took, his largest campaign contributor was Marian Adelson, who's a raving Zionist, and they're working on annexing the West Bank because she gave him $100 million, and he's a for sale whore, so he just does whatever the highest bidder does. And so they're working on that, and yet, fucking Mike Huckabee just denies the existence of Palestine. I mean, what kinds of things do people say when people use the meme, it's not real, instead of Israel? Or they say that, you know, the formation of the country was completely illegitimate because it was just stolen land or whatever. Like, say, what happens to those people? They're literally being disappeared by the government in my country right now. And the way you'll lose your job, whatever, deported, thrown in jail, all kinds of horrible things. Yet Mike Huckabee says something like that, which is hardly different than the shit Hamas was saying in the 1980s. And Marco Rubio, who's just a raving psychopath as well. Anyways, despite the fact that that is the composition of this administration that we have, I can't remember his name because there's too many fucking people to keep track of with the news cycle, and there's too many news stories going on. But one of the administration's advisors for foreign policy or whatever, he met with Hamas, and he went out in the news cycle, and he said, look, when you sit down with these people, you actually realize that they're not wild animals, is something similar to how he put it. And he went on, and they've just said, no, you fucking idiot, you're losing the plot. That's not the point. We're supposed to demonize and dehumanize these people as much as possible. So there's just no good faith anything coming out of the other side on this, just at all.
Have you seen them celebrating the dead hostages?
I think that they're horrible people, yeah.
As well as
personally, I haven't seen that. Have you seen that last year when Israeli citizens formed a blockade to prevent, and this is when the IDF and Israel wasn't preventing aid from going in, but people in Israel just went there and formed a roadblock and blocked the blockade. And what did the IDF do? They came in and basically formed security teams for the Israeli people to do the blockade, and they set up even fucking bouncy house castles for their kids. And when these Israelis were interviewed about it, many of them expressed, yeah, I hope more kids in Palestine die. That's the point of what they're doing there. So
I think that's, I guess, like, what's the word? I think it's hard because obviously everyone only really sees and remembers what they want to see and remember. But I also want to point out, like, I think it was the old leader of Hamas, or one of the leaders, his son, right? He wrote a book and came to America and basically stated how he hated Hamas and what they're doing. Do you have any
Nope.
clue of what I'm talking
Never heard of
about?
that. Nope.
I would appreciate if you could like look it up. Because I honestly feel like if someone who's the son of, you know, the leader of Hamas is coming out and saying that this is an awful organization, they're only here to cause harm, what does that say about the organization as a whole?
Hamas?
Yeah.
Again, I don't support Hamas. It's also true that Hamas is just like the government of that region, and another tactic people use is, oh, they killed 10 Hamas members. But if you blew up the post office, and not a single person that fights in the Hamas military was killed, then you technically would have killed members of Hamas. You know, there's this gross equivocation of that.
As well as, I get, but
And,
a lot of people,
you know, like, are you aware that Benjamin Netanyahu has in the past propped up Hamas? Like there were opportunities in the past where Hamas was being delegitimized, and he worked to prop them up to keep this issue going because it's a winning issue for him.
not that I know of, but once again, I think there's more we both have to look into. But yeah, what was I gonna say?
Okay,
going back.
I want to read you. I don't want to stick on this because this is my
Yeah.
main thing.
Yeah,
and
obviously,
this
yeah.
is important. It's just not what I do.
I mean, yeah, obviously that's why
but I
was-
want
I asked
to-
at the start, because I agree with you on all that stuff. There's nothing there I want to do.
I want to read you something, and I just want to get your reaction to this. Is it in any way rational to expect that after Palestine has attacked us for more than half a century, that we will leave her to live in security and peace? You may then dispute that all the above does not justify aggression against civilians for crimes they did not commit and offenses in which they did not partake, but the Palestinian people are the ones who choose their government by way of their free will, a choice which stems from their agreement to its policies. Thus, the Palestinian people have chosen, consented to, and affirmed their support for the continuous killing, torture, and punishment of the Jewish people. The Palestinian people have the ability and choice to refuse the policies of their government and even to change it if they want. This is why the Palestinian people cannot be innocent of the crimes committed by Hamas. So do you agree with any of that?
No,
Actually, I can pull
yeah.
this up here.
So, I guess with my opinion on this is, I think it's very important to disassociate Palestine and the citizens of Palestine with Hamas, as
Okay.
though there are. Yeah.
I'm glad you think so, but a lot of people don't think so. And the reason I pulled this up is this is actually the letter that Osama bin Laden wrote on why it was justifiable to attack America. All I did was replace American with Palestinian, and how'd I do it? I put in Palestinian instead of American and flipped Jewish with Palestinian when it's the victim case here. Because I have seen so many countless examples of people saying that the Palestinians are guilty of what Hamas is doing, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, okay, you're a terrorist by this logic, because that's exactly what Osama bin Laden said as his justification for his attack. So if somebody, and you didn't do this, but if somebody's going to take that logic, and then it's like, okay, well then you're no different than Osama bin Laden. And I don't think that Netanyahu is that much different than Hitler. So I think he's a Nazi of a different creed. Ethnically cleansing out an area in order to establish an ethno-state. That's what I think.
Okay, well, I want to make sure other people can get to talk, more about science and whatnot. But thank you for your time and your
hooray,
opinion.
science. Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm surprised we're still going after that. Um. Okay. Anyways. Oh, let's bring up an elf. That sounds like fun on a bun.
Hello, hello. I have a metaphysical or belief about the origin of the Big Bang, but it's not God related. So is that okay?
Sure, I'll allow it.
All right. So first of all, before I get to the experiments, do you think that it makes sense for things to exist with no explanation?
I'm really sorry. I wanted to reply to a text there. So you said, does it make sense to invoke something that has no cause to it? Say it again. Sorry.
Yeah. Do you think that it makes sense for anything to exist that has no explanation for its existence?
Well, something would have to.
That is my contention.
You either end up in an infinite regression, or you in a way you kind of have to specially plead. Now I think God is special pleading. It's he's spaceless, timeless, immaterial. That's why he's allowed to do anything. It's like, well, those are the properties that something that doesn't exist has. Now, what I typically say, like scientifically, is the universe can be. We've had this conversation like 4 times today, and that's fine. But we can have an eternal universe because time, as we understand it, would not have operated in the before cosmic inflation began. So you could have an eternal universe that just exists.
Yeah, I agree with that model. I just think that it still begs the question of why anything exists at all, and I would like to maybe propose an answer as to that situation.
Well, when you
because
say
even
why,
with an infinite retract, it's like, yeah.
Oh, sorry, I have to complete a puzzle or my live will be shut down. I find that so weird. So by why do you mean like teleologically why, or how it came to be?
No, I mean how it came to be.
Okay.
How it came to be, I think.
Sure, go ahead.
So I think that essentially reality, based off of everything I've observed, is relational. That is, everything is defined by its relation to other things, including reality itself. And the evidence of this are things like the delayed choice experiment, and also what scientists have done with a superconducting microwave cavity that shows something called partial decoherence. Now, if I want, I can turn on my camera and show you an example of just a single molecule going through this relational metaphysic. And then you can expand that to the whole universe. And then that's where the Big Bang comes from. Is that okay if I turn on my camera?
I'm just sitting here thinking, am I going to have any freaking clue what you're talking about? Yeah, here, can I make you bigger? There, you are big now.
All right, so let me see here. Turn the camera on, save. So if we have a particle in its wave function form, this just represents the wave function. It's spread out, it's in superposition. It could be any of these positions when it decoheres, right? And it also has a path.
Could I interrupt you for just a second? I am streaming this on YouTube and they can't see you, but I want them to, so I'm going to duplicate my source here. Paste. Okay. And now if I move this over here, I gotta crop you a little bit. There you are. And I'm almost done. Shit, what the hell did I just do? And now the YouTube universe can see what you're doing. Okay, go for it.
So we have this representing the wave function. This is not exactly what the Schrodinger equation looks like. It's just meant to represent the fuzzy superposition of a particle. We also have a particle's movement. The wave function moves forward through time. And it can go in any way, but eventually it's going to come into contact with something. And happens, yeah.
Your connection, like,
Oh, it's going to reduce or completely eliminate the wave function in the my connection.
yeah, your connection is hot garbage right now, unfortunately.
Let me switch networks and see if that helps. Hang
Yeah,
on.
you got 1 bar on the screen, sometimes 2.
Yeah, I think I fixed it.
Okay.
I think I fixed it.
Sounds
So we have the wave function before it decoheres. We have its time going through time and space or whatever, and then it was going to decohere over here. Now, usually what we see in classical mechanics is when it decoheres with a system, it just becomes a particle. And it's just going to be in a definite position. It's no longer a wave function. It's now interacted with the environment sufficiently that it becomes just a particle in a specific position, and that's decoherence. However, what this experiment with the superconducting microwave cavity shows is that if you have it interfere with another wave function, so rather than interfering with a classical mechanical system, you have it interfere with another wave function. So 2 wave functions interfere with each other. This wave function is now going to reduce. It's going to partially decohere. Instead of being the full circle of the wave function, it's going to be something like, like maybe that. It's like an oval. It's like it's a reduced wave function. And now the position is no longer anywhere in this wave function. It has to be in specific parts of the wave function. And this partial decoherence and also the delayed choice experiment, which shows that particles can retroactively become classical after we do a measurement in the future. It can affect the past, classicality of that particle. I can explain the delayed choice experiment more if you want.
No, I've heard explanations of it, and what I've heard is people are deeply misinterpreting what's happening with the delayed choice. Sabine Hassenfelder has a really good video on it. Because what's happening is you have those 2 screens, and what people think is happening is it's changing an event in the past, but the 2 screens are showing the single interference pattern just split in half. And when you mesh the 2 detectors together, you can see it's the entire wave function, but instead people are interpreting it as, over here, it's behaving as a particle, not a wave. But it was detected afterwards. That means it changed what happened in the past. So I think that delayed choice thing is just really misunderstood.
Right. It doesn't show that information travels backward in time. I want to be clear about that. That's not what the delayed choice experiment shows. What it does show is that the classicality of a system can be affected like retroactively. It's not the same thing as information passing backward in time. It's slightly different. I'm not even fully versed on this, so I'll have to look into it more. But to just finish this explanation of decoherence, if it's the case that partial decoherence is possible, that is, it smoothly transitions from a wave function to classical, what I'm proposing is that essentially the lifeline of the particle and its position at each of these events is determined by the entire length of space-time. And things like relativity, which show that time is relative and not fundamental, possibly emergent. Oh, shoot, my connection's getting bad again. Okay, there it goes. So, essentially, with just a single particle, its actual position at any point is defined by its entire lifeline. And if we take this and extrapolate it to all of reality, what the Big Bang is essentially reality collapsing into coherency by the interaction of every single particle across space-time. And I think I can shrink. I don't think I need to show this anymore.
Okay, I'll do that for you. So I don't know anything about any of that. But when you say the entire, how did you put that? It's the, what'd you say about the wave function? It exists in the entire. Say it again. Are you muted? I don't hear anything.
Well, I would say what I would say is that oh shoot, my stupid connection. So the wave function, yeah. Apparently God doesn't want me to talk because it's like messing with my connection.
Yeah, go for it. Give it a try.
All right. Now it's good. It fixed itself. So what I'm saying is like essentially like the particle's position at any point in time depends on its decoherence across its entire timeline. And the
Yeah.
experiments have already shown that partial decoherence is possible. And that seems to indicate that a particle's classicality, like it's relative to its interactions with things in its environment. And I just extrapolating that to all of reality. And it's a very parsimonious explanation, because instead of the Big Bang coming from nothing or having a universe that always existed that has no explanation, we start with essentially a universe where everything is happening everywhere. But what we observe is the decoherence of those things into the reality that we see, into the Big Bang.
So
It's basically, yeah, go ahead.
as a moron, but who knows words and stuff, some of this sounds like B theory of time to me, where it almost seems like that could cooperate with what you're describing, but I wouldn't know how to articulate it.
No, you're spot on. This relational metaphysic, as I call it, is compatible with B theory of time, and it's also technically compatible with God, but it also doesn't need God to exist. So it doesn't refute or prove God. It doesn't have anything to do with God.
Okay. I mean, I wish I knew more. I wish I was Blitz or could download his brain for a minute here. But I don't really have anything that I can't tell you if this is a great idea or a Terrence Howard idea. I can't. I wish I could, but I can't.
Well, like I'd appreciate you getting the platform, because like people will hear it and then they'll probably tell me I'm wrong in the comments after or something. So that'll
that'll maybe.
Be good.
We will have to see.
All right. Well, I'll do more work on it and try to talk to Dr. Blitz at some point, because I'm gonna need more for Dr. Blitz. You're right.
Yeah. Well. All right.
All right.
He can maybe help you out. Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Oh, geez. All right. We got to get some ops in here. Too many friendlies.
What's up, homie?
Not a lot. What's up with you?
Not too much. I have a kind of a moral philosophical question that I wanted to see, just kind of get your opinion on, what your thoughts are.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so to give you some context and some background, because I think it's important. I grew up in South Florida as a lifelong Miami Heat. So grew up in Florida as a lifelong Miami Heat fan. I'm sorry too. Went to University of Florida. Where I studied mathematics and engineering, and went to college with Al Horford, right? So big Gator fan, big Heat fan. And the past 2 years, the Heat fan has been really rough. We had last year, this year, Jimmy's a bitch. And now I have to watch the Boston Celtics, who I despise, and the Knicks, who I despise, play. So barring a natural disaster at 3:30 today, I have to watch one of these teams win in advance, right?
But Al Horford's on the Celtics.
That's what's even harder, because I had to watch him win a ring for the Celtics last year, which is incredibly bittersweet, obviously.
Yeah.
And so he's got one. I want him to lose now. That's done, right? Don't want the Knicks to win, because I want to watch their fans cry and bitch and moan more, because that's enjoyable for me. So my real question is, do I pull for the Pacers or the Cavs? Because which one of them has the higher likelihood of beating one of these bums?
I mean, I would just go with the Cavaliers. I don't know how the Cavs split the season with the Celtics. I know I did watch the first two games they played, and it was really crazy. In both games, what happened was Cleveland went down by like 20 points and then came back and only ended up losing by like 1 or 2 or 3 points. It was really weird how that happened in both games, but they probably played 3, if not 4 games. Well, they definitely played 3 because they're in the East.
Yeah, they won last night.
But I don't know if they're in the same. No. I mean, in their regular season matchups with Cleveland and Boston.
Right.
So I mean, I don't know. I'll put my bets on Cleveland, I guess.
All right, and then here's the second part, which follows from one of the first statements I made. So I claim Jimmy's a bitch, right?
Right.
And now Jimmy's on the Warriors, so it would follow that I want him to lose. Herein lies quandary number 2 from a moral standpoint. Huge basketball fan, so I love watching Steph Curry play. Hated that he got injured, but part of me was happy because it hurts Jimmy.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many years Steph has left. So now, do I root to watch Steph come back so I can watch him play? Or do I root for him to stay out so Jimmy loses and I feel better about myself?
Oh, man. Yeah, what do you do with
tough,
that?
right?
What do you do with that?
don't
Maybe
know.
maybe
That's the
Steph will
problem.
get better and Jimmy will break his butt again, and so he'll be out.
Okay, I'll kind of have the copium going for that. That's what I'll hope for.
Yeah.
So, anyway, man, have a good day. I just wanted to fuck
Well,
around
wait
and
a
have some
minute.
ball chat.
Wait
Yeah,
a minute.
what's up? Sure.
Well, I mean, but if the Timberwolves win, that would be their revenge against Jimmy Butler.
I want the Wolves to win for a million reasons, and that's number 1A, and then Jimmy losing is 1B, and that could be 1A. We could reverse those any moment.
Because if
depending
the
on how I
Warriors win, it's a win-lose, but if the Wolves win, it's just a win.
feel. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. You're right. So, hey, thanks for unwrapping that for me, man. I really appreciate your insight.
You're welcome.
All right, later, buddy.
People say that sports isn't science. Yes, it is. Do-do-do-do-do. Do-do-do. Ooh, I don't know if Dustin's there any longer. I had so many people waiting while I was talking to that Brooklyn guy. What the fuck was that? I apologize to the world for that absolutely horrendous attempt at an impersonation. You never know what's going to happen when you start doing an impersonation. You never know what's going to happen. And that's what happened. And I deeply regret all of it. Well, yeah, I don't know. That's all we got. Hello?
Hello.
What's up?
Have you watched the new season of Andor?
Nope. Didn't watch the old one either.
Damn. Honestly, you should watch like the last 2 episodes of this season, even if like you don't follow the plot, because it's just a masterpiece.
I assume it's on Disney Plus.
Yes. Yes.
All right. I mean, we'll see. We'll see.
Okay. That's all I was wondering. Have a good day, Peter.
Thank you. Am I on the spectrum? Yeah. Yeah. NBA basketball was best in the 80s and 90s? What? What are you talking about? Ugh.
What's going on, Planet?
Not too much.
The last guest, I know you were begging for someone like Blitz to come up and chat with the guest trying to talk about quantum mechanics, which I just wanted to say is one of my pet peeves when I do my live streams, is when people try to use quantum mechanics to justify their God figure. They'll use a whole bunch of word salad that they think sounds interesting and intelligent, while describing absolutely nothing. And as far as I could tell, the guest that was talking about decoherence essentially was just trying to make another version of B theory of time at the same time, trying to misunderstand the observer effect in quantum mechanics with things like the double slit experiment. So I just thought I would put that out there because I get it. You told him, listen, I'm not Dr. Blitz. I don't know exactly everything you said to me, but I'm just letting you know that's what it sounded like he was trying to say. And if you're going to have faith in a religion, just have faith in a religion. Don't ever try to justify it with math and science. It'll make you look stupid. Sorry, or ignorant. I should be nice. It'll make you look a little ignorant.
Yeah. Well, he said it works for God, but that's not the point of it, to be fair, I guess. But yeah, I don't know.
Understood. Well, I appreciate you having me on, man.
You're welcome. Me, RM, not stupid. Well, I don't have any guests, so we may be at the tail end of the stream, gang, which is fine. We did almost 2 hours. Where are my two brain? Or wait, where are may have two brain cells? I don't know what that means. Watch party for Andor? Probably not. I'm gonna set up my pool today. That's right, everybody. You're talking to a guy who has his own above ground pool. Hell yeah. That's how you know you've made it in life. Yeah. I think that is how we will end it on this side. I'm going to end on TikTok. I'm going to stay on YouTube for a few more minutes. But anyways, like, it's not my fault. There are no more crazies. We really only had the one guy. Everybody else was kind of cool. Anyways, oh, wait a minute. No, God damn it. I meant to accept the other guy. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
What's up?
Not much, man. I didn't get to see the conversation. I just came into your live. You don't believe in God?
No.
Why not?
I have just never heard any convincing evidence or arguments for it.
Understandable. So my next question would be, do you even read the word or actually walk with God?
Well,
or did you try?
I was raised in a church for my entire childhood. So does that count as trying?
No, that just means you went to church. Trying is having a personal relationship. I mean, when you're raised in the church, was your dad or mom a part of it, or like
my mom was a huge part of it? Yeah. Do you know what know and accept the concept of a, what do you call it? Something like a non-resistant non-believer. Do you know what I mean when I say that?
No, it's the first time. Explain it to me if you could, please.
Well, I think I'll put it in a more simple sense. If God wanted me to know that God exists, it did not try.
Okay.
And a God certainly would know how to do that, and it didn't.
No, I understand. If a king wanted to actually go out and talk to every one of his subjects, he probably could do that. Would he? Would be the question. I mean, have you ever read the chapter? Let's say the book. Have you ever read the book of Job?
I'm not sure if I've read the entire thing.
Okay. No, I would ask or implore you to read it. Job goes through a horrific situation, but
yeah, I know.
Around chapter 33.
I know the story. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say around chapter 38, to chapter 43. Sorry, hold on. An ambulance is passing. Hold on. And my dog is just. Lord God, please help her. Sorry, she is howling so hard right now. I would say chapter 38 to chapter 43, this specific question is answered with God talking to Job. And, his thing is, well, where were you when I created the heavens and the earth? Where were you when I separated land from the sea?
I know about that. Do you know the way the heavens work? Can you tame Behemoth? Can you whatever?
Yeah, but his point he was getting to Job is even though I do all of that, I still have you.
What does that mean?
I still look out for you. So
Wait,
even
what?
though
He
Job
looked
went
out
through,
for him. He killed his entire family.
no, Satan did that.
He took. No, God did it to prove a point to Satan. What are you talking about?
How did God do it? No, okay, that's you haven't read all the chapters, so I understand. How do you think God did it?
How? Well, nobody knows how magic works. But God does all these things.
No. Satan did those. Satan said, God asked Satan where had he come from, even though he knew where he was coming from. He said, and Satan said, I have been going and roaming the earth back and forth. Then Satan says, not one of the people that you have created has your back. God then talks to Satan and says, well, have you considered my servant Job? So in that, when he said, have you considered my servant Job? And then Satan goes out and he does these horrific things to Job.
So Satan does,
because he's already.
I am willing to sit here and have egg on my face and say that I got it wrong. God let Satan do these things, but okay, yeah, I'm such a fucking idiot. Okay, thank you for. Well, now I won't go around saying things that are wrong, so that's good. So Satan inflicts the suffering, God permits the suffering, Satan cannot act without God's permission. Job 1 verse 12 and 2 verse 6. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So the thing I'm looking at, and the thing that I read understood with reading it is that even though Satan tried to trip up Job and hurt him in the most unbelievable possible way, God restored Satan. Now, us as man, we're going to see that as a problem, because why in the world would you take his family? Why in the world would you allow him to go through all these turmoils and lose all his land? But God is looking at, okay, but I have looked at the entire situation in whole. I have understood what you're going through. And even though these things happen to you, I'm going to restore your family. Your children were with me in heaven. Okay. They're like, this story was for people who get at a certain status in life, or just get to a point where it's me, I'm doing this, even though Job didn't deserve it. But the whole point was, we're going to defeat Satan, because Satan is the one that introduced sin into the world.
If you were God and you could prevent Satan from doing that, why would you not do it?
The same way I wouldn't prevent my child from touching a hot stove after I told him don't do it. Because
you really wouldn't?
As a father, no. If I've told you 100 times don't do that because it's going to keep you from pain, you don't believe me, and then you still do it. Well, now me and you understand there's pain.
Would you let them jump into a fire?
The same way. He gives you warnings.
Would you let your own child jump into a fire?
That's a fallacy. I mean,
it's not.
Honestly,
would you let your child? No. Okay.
As a man,
so
no. But
why? So what?
Okay,
what specific kinds of things would you let your child suffer and endure?
Honestly, if I can stop them from doing it, I wouldn't let them suffer anything that's going to hurt them.
Well, you are greater than God, sir.
In life, no.
You are much greater than God.
I'm actually taking it from God.
If I heard that Satan was going to kill Job's entire family, and I was able to make it not happen, I'd make it not happen.
Okay, so then I asked you about this one specific thing that Jesus did. It's always often they say, well, Jesus couldn't do this. So Jesus literally stopped a group of people from making a mistake, right? Or he could have stopped them, right? He told them about it. Then his disciples were, okay, God, why won't you help them? Because they won't learn, they won't grow. That's the same thing that we go through in life. How else are you supposed to learn something if you don't experience it? You can be told 100 times. Kids do this all the time with their parents. Dad, I want to do this. I like this girl. Okay, that girl's fast. Don't do that. If you get pregnant, now your whole entire life changes. Right now, you have opportunity to be better, but as soon as that child comes, it's not about you anymore. Well, yeah, Dad, I hear what you're saying, but that's not what this is right now. Okay, but I'm telling you the consequences, and if you pursue it, you're gonna change your life or hurt yourself. Nah, Dad, I'm not gonna listen to you. I'm going to go ahead and do it. A couple of years later, a couple of months later, it doesn't matter how long. Dang, Dad, she really hurt me. I know. I've been down the road. I know what the road looks like. Like that.
There are types. So there are types of. I'm actually against the idea of bubble wrapping the entire world, to an extent, because I think that going through adversity is actually an important part of developing as a person. But there is also such a thing as pointless suffering. What was the point of God allowing Satan to kill Job's entire family? Because it sounds like your explanation for that was God said, "Oh, look, they're with me in heaven." What's the point?
No, not that. That's not my. That wasn't. Okay, I'll do it like this. The point was Satan is already doing it. He's on a war path. He's like a roaring lion, right? Looking to devour and destroy anybody. He's already doing this. Okay? The point is to free us from that. God told us, God gave us direction, God gave us purpose. And just like in the Garden of Eden, okay, don't eat from the tree of knowledge. This will hurt you. Satan comes in, goes and disrupts it because he's pissed off. He's kicked out with 1/3 of the angels. The point is to stop our sufferings, to stop it from him. But the only way that you're going to be able to do that is get down there in the nitty-gritty with the person you're trying to help. We don't have to go through it, but how many times do we listen?
I was trying to ask the point of the story, and I'm reading Job here, and what happens is...
Where are you reading? Where are you reading so I can be on the same?
Job 1.
Okay, so you're in chapter 1. Okay.
Yeah, and starting in verse 8, God says to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? There's no one on earth like him. He's blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil." And then Satan just says, "Yeah, but why? You put a hedge around him and his household and everything he has. You've given him blessings of herds of sheep and whatever. But now stretch out your hand and strike everything he has, and surely he will curse your face, Lord." And then the Lord says to Satan, "Very well then, everything he has is in your power, but on the man himself do not lay a finger." So this is what I got wrong, but I got it right kind of in a way. I think the point of this story, I don't think it's a good story, but I don't think people had... whatever, we don't have to get into that. But the point is that Job just has unwavering faith in God, even if Job's life is miserable. Because, yeah, a good person worshiping God there's nothing really all that... Like, would you love me if I were broke? Kind of like in a weird sort of comparison, right? But this is just such a sadistic story. God gives permission to Satan to, okay, make the man as miserable as you want, just don't harm him. Except, doesn't Job get like boils and sores? That seems kind of odd. But like all his daughters and sons and his wife and everything dies. What was the point?
Tell me how it goes to explain this correctly. So you have somebody who hates his father and his creation.
Who?
And he's been acting the same way.
Who?
For Satan.
It doesn't say that anywhere. And in the Old Testament, Satan is just a title that means like adversary of God. There's nothing in this story where Satan is this just conniving little bitter soul or anything like that. It literally just says Satan was walking around and God says, "Where you been, buddy?" And he just says, "I've been walking around on the earth."
But when you read the Bible, you see that he was walking around on the earth as a roaring lion, consuming and destroying anybody he crossed.
If you assume univocality, if you take the words of people that lived thousands of years later and what they wrote, then sure. But if we just read the story, what does the story say?
No, I get where you're coming from. I mean, I could apply the same logic to American history. That doesn't mean I would be right.
Yeah, so I just want to
It
know what the
happened.
story says, not what the story doesn't say, or not what some
No, I'm not
other
saying
story
what.
says.
Well, to do that, I have to explain to you because you don't know and you don't read it the characteristics of the evil one and what he's doing, and then understanding at that point,
How
okay, the purpose is.
to me, the evil one is the one who gives permission to inflict misery on innocent people and kill them.
Okay, but that's because you haven't read everything. You don't know him.
What could possibly be the justification for me granting somebody else the power to go and harm and kill innocent people?
He didn't tell him to go harm and kill innocent people. That was all in his actions. Satan could have chose to do something different. He didn't.
God he gave him not a blank check, but that's all I can think of to say. The Lord
that's the
said
way
to
you're
the
looking at
Lord
it, though.
said to the Lord said to Satan, everything he has is in your power. He gave him like what do you if I let's just imagine this happening in society today. If you gave people weapons and said, go do whatever you want with them, I give you permission to. Yeah, those people, whatever horrible acts they did, I would hope that they would be held accountable for them. Don't you think you should be held accountable?
He holds himself accountable.
God holds himself accountable?
Yeah, he said that he. Let me see here. Where is the script? Where's the scripture where he says, I created evil"? He takes responsibility for what his son does, but he also looks at it and says, "Okay, but with my moral standard, my moral statutes, with my laws, you do not have to suffer the same fate." God is a type of God that he's not going to judge you. He will get down in the dirt with you to help bring you up out of the dirt versus somebody talking at you, but that's not willing to get in the dirt with you. That's his characteristic. And when you read the Bible, you see that. Us as
What
men,
does that
we
even
do horrific
what does
things.
that mean?
What do you mean does that mean? So hold on. Let me ask you this. Have you ever been in trouble to where your parents had to step in and get you out?
I've never had to been bailed out or had my case pleaded or anything like that.
Okay, but this trouble where they had to this trouble to where they had to intervene. Don't have to go to court. Let's say something bully at school. Let's say, for instance, you're at work and someone tries to assault you. Just any type of situation where your parents had to step in with you. Have you experienced that?
No, I mean, I got in trouble and my parents punished me, but they never had to step in and do anything.
Okay, well, God stepping in and getting down in the dirt with us, with our sin, and saying, "Here, let me guide you up out of this," because right now you've been going in circles. Let me get in this muck and grab you by the hand and say, "Okay, this way." That's the type of characteristics that he has. That's who he is. My parents, because I was hard headed, here, I'll do my brother. My brother got with this female
on camera
who only wanted him for his money. Huh?
Nothing. Sorry, go on.
Okay, yeah. My brother got with this female who wanted nothing to do with him except his money. He was in the army. Now he went to Fort Bragg thinking he wanted to marry this girl. She was just emptying his bank account. And you get in trouble in the army if you don't handle your finances right. My dad, once my brother told him what was happening, he ex-military, he went on to base and changed all of my brother's stuff. Then when my brother graduated, he went to his graduation and then showed him receipts of this girl buying cars, paying her rent, dating other men and sponsoring them. He got him out of trouble. Now, he could have been like, "Well, I told you, you didn't listen." Now you got this lesson, do better next time, but how? How is he going to do better? That's still not an answer to be better. That's still not an answer to understand. So he got down in the dirt with my brother and walked him out of his problem that he put himself in for not listening.
Okay, Alan.
Parents do that.
It's not a bad story, but it doesn't have anything to do with Job. And my question was, where is the justification or the moral logic or the rational or whatever for punishing innocent people to prove or really allowing them to be harmed so that God could prove a point to Satan?
It was not that God can prove a point. It was for our salvation. We are still going through the same problems today, dealing with the evil one.
So then, why does God let Satan do that? So that we can grow?
Why does God let Satan do that? So that we can see, so that we can understand. Look, right now, you don't even want to hear, anything about God bringing people out of that type of damnation. You're still fighting against it. When you love somebody, you'll show them. You'll actually physically act upon it. You can say it. It can sound nice and never do anything about it and just keep gaslighting, or you can do something about it and physically show them.
Why would I not, if somebody was going through something, why wouldn't I just say, oh, this is Satan doing this to you to test your faith? And then why would I not just go completely hands off and not help them for the greater good?
Well, I would say thank God that you're not God, but Job understood at the end of the experience that he could talk to God.
Do you think it would be unethical to do that? What I just described?
Do I think it would be unethical? That goes back to the touching the stove and the hot. Did he tell him beforehand? Does he know God beforehand? Was that unethical?
Let's just do it like a specific example. I see that somebody is just in incredible danger. They're hanging off of a cliff or something. And I say, Satan, or that's not a good example. Let's say somebody's really sick. Like I'm a parent with a child and the child is really sick. And I say, look, Satan is doing this to you to test your faith. And so I'm not taking you to the hospital. We're going to have faith that God is going to fix this. Or even if you do die, we are still going to worship God, even if he allows Satan to take you away from me in this world. Would that be okay for somebody to do?
Would that be okay for somebody to do? God would never do that.
He did do that to Job.
Without warning, without knowing who he is. Just blindly, I'm supposed to do this. You don't have any of my characteristics. You don't know who I am.
I don't even know what that means.
Meaning that they're like, okay, so your sick child, hey, I need you to take him to the doctor. You don't do it. You have tools to help you. Hey, you got a sick child.
Instead I invoke that this is a test from that Satan is doing this, and it's a test of our faith.
So where's the works?
What?
Where's the action in solving the problem? Faith without works is dead. So you're just sitting there going, it's like the boat. It's like the story where there's a flood, and
so you're saying it would be bad.
This person's gone.
Then why did God let Satan do this to Job's children?
Okay, so with the boat, with the wrath that God sends, like I was saying with the story about a person flooding and them rejecting that. Okay? Job knew and understand who God is. Okay? He understood that he could talk to him afterwards. In that story, when you get to chapter 38 to chapter 43, you then in turn see God explaining to him, there is coming an end time. The way you guys view time, the way you guys view reality is not the same way I do.
There's
Okay?
at no point does Job have
And
any idea that Satan is doing this to him.
again, why he stays quiet. Okay, God, I don't know what's going on. But where everybody else decided to curse God, Job stayed quiet until he could talk to God, till he can get the understanding. At the end time, God explains to Job through descriptions of what he does, revelation, meaning that the evil one, Satan, is going to be punished. Your kids, your land, all going to be restored. But your kids who perished, they're here with me. Satan does this anyway. How do I correct that? So my question to you would be, how would you deal with willful defiance?
There's nothing analogous. Willful defiance. What does that have to do with the story of Job?
Go to chapters 38 and chapter 43. So then that way you can see.
I got to read the entire chapter?
Yes, that's how you get context. You got to read everything.
But don't you know the answer? Like I get you saying that I should read it. That's fine. But don't you know the answer?
Yes, and I'm trying to get you to know it.
Well, could you just tell me what it is? Because I'm looking at chapter 38 and it's got 41 verses in it.
Mm-hmm. You can't skip over it. You got to read these things. Remember, you haven't read
So
the
you
whole
have
story.
no idea.
I do have an idea.
Could you please tell me?
So, okay, not a problem. Okay, let's go to chapter 40, verse 1. Moreover, the Lord answered Job and said, shall he that contendeth with the Almighty instruct him?
This is not
he
chapter 40.
that reproveth
What
God?
chapter are you on?
I am Job chapter 40, verse 1.
Oh, for some reason, my version doesn't have verse 1. Why the hell is that? Huh.
Because man
must be
has been
considered
so, no, I can tell you
an addition.
No, because man has become so wicked. And when we read everything, we can now understand his characteristics and what's going on. That, oh, well, if I don't give you this, then you won't know. It's like the same thing with praying. They took the most important part out in praying, where when you fast and you pray with all of your heart and all of your mind on one accord, God moves. But in the book that we have till today versus what they took out, it's if you just pray. No, there's an order. So if you go right here to chapter 40, it says, moreover, the Lord answered Job and said, shall he that contendeth with the Almighty instruct him? So you're going to tell me what to do in this, even though you don't know what to do.
So
he that reproveth God, let him answer it. So if you got the answer, you tell me, just like what you just did with me right now. Okay? Verse 3. Then Job answered the Lord and said, behold, I am vile. I know I'm messed up, God. I know I'm not right. I will lay mine hand upon my mouth. I'm going to shut up and let you speak because I don't got it. I can't answer you. Once I have spoken, but I will not answer yea. Twice, but I will proceed no further. Full stop. Then answered the Lord unto Job out the whirlwind and sea, gird up thy loins now like a man.
We can't sit here
Man
and
up.
read the entire thing. What's the point?
But that's what
I'm
you're supposed to
completely
do.
lost. Okay, so you said the answer is in those places. And then I said, okay, well, I can't sit here and read the entire thing on this live stream. Could you just tell me? And all you're doing is just reading them. So you never had an answer for any of this. All that's
Yes, I
going
do
on
have the
here
answer.
is in 38, God says, oh, yeah, Job, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do these other things? Do you know this? Do you know that? Because Job says, why did you do this to me? And God just lists his powers, really as if to mock Job in a weird way after he allowed his life to be ruined. And then Job says, I still don't get it. And then God goes through this whole other soliloquy saying these other things. Have an arm like God? Can you thunder with a voice like his? And then Job just capitulates at the end. It's like, okay, well, I see. I mean, fuck it. Goes on. Verse 41 is still God just jerking himself off. After the Lord,
Well,
you got to go to
you're,
verse
you're gonna
42.
see that.
After the Lord had spoken these words to Job, the Lord said to Eliphaz, whatever, the termite, my wrath is kindled against you and your two friends, for you have not spoken of me what is right, and as my servant Job has. Now, therefore, go sacrifice some bulls. Yeah, there's just, okay, at the top. Then Job, yeah, I don't know why. For some reason, what I'm reading here, it doesn't label verse 1. It's not missing. They just don't label it.
You have to read everything. You're going to always be in this.
Stop. Then Job answered the Lord, I know that you can do all things, and that no purpose of yours can be thwarted. Who is this that hides counsel without knowledge? Therefore I have uttered what I did not understand, things too powerful for me, which I did not know. Hear and I will speak. I will question you, and you declare to me, I have heard you by the hearing of the ear. What a sentence. I had heard you by the hearing of the ear. But now my eyes see you, therefore I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes. So literally no explanation for why God did anything to Job. God just says, my dad could beat up your dad, and Job goes, yeah, you're right, fam. There's no moral here except for God to demonstrate first of all, let innocent people get killed, and then for God to say, me strong. This is a monstrous person.
That's all you're going to get if you just skip around. When you skip around, that's all you're going to get. I actually ask you with full honesty, read all of it and then
all of Job or the entire Bible?
Read all of Job. I asked you to read all of the entire Bible. I want you to do that.
Where
but my point I'm making is just please read the entire
done this.
subject.
So can you just tell me what it is that makes it okay that God allowed for innocent people to be killed in horrible ways?
There is nothing that makes it okay is the point I was trying to get to. God is going to save us from all of that. It happened to Job, okay? And when it happened to Job, God stepped in. Job got to talk to God. Then in chapter 38 to chapter 42, you see the answer, but you're never going to be able to get it if you don't read all of it.
Then what is the answer?
To a scripture. Okay, I'm gonna see if I can try and get this to you as fast as possible. I just ask you to give me a quick second. I want to make sure I have the right one. So go to chapter 41, and let's go from verse 12 to verse 34, if you would please. Is that okay?
12 to 34?
Yes, there's your answer right there.
This is just God. This is the middle of God saying all the things he can do. So why are we starting in the middle of God saying all the things he can do?
Because you didn't want to start in the beginning. You asked for a quick answer. Please read it. Chapter 12 through 34. I'll have you read it.
I don't know why I'm even going to do this. I will not keep silence concerning its limbs or its mighty strength or its splendid frame. Who can strip off its outer garment? Who can penetrate its double coat of mail? Who can open the doors of its face? There is terror all around its teeth. Its back is made of shields and rows, shut up closely with a seal. One is so near to another that no air can come in between them. They are joined to one another, they clasp each other and cannot be separated. It sneezes, flash forth light, and its eyes are like eyelids of the dawn. From its mouth go flaming torches. Sparks of fire leap out of its nostrils. Come smoke as from a boiling pot and burning rushes. Its breath kindles coals. All right, so I'm not at 34 yet. Where you're telling me that this is an explanation for why it's okay to let innocent people be killed by Satan?
Okay, so no, I'm not telling you. You're asking why, and I'm telling you he's going to stop everything. That he's describing Satan right now, and
He literally didn't. He could have stopped it, and he didn't.
Keep reading. Keep reading.
It literally just fucking says, its leaves a shining wake behind it. One would think the deep to be white-haired. On earth, it has no equal, a creature without fear. It surveys everything that is lofty, and it's king over all that are proud. The end. So there's an explanation for that's 30. That's verse 34.
You skipped the middle.
There's nothing
you
in
the middle. Why didn't you want to read? Why don't you want to read verse 22 going down?
Its neck abides strength and terror dances before it. Where in there is the
flakes of his flesh are joined together. They are firm in themselves. They cannot be moved. His heart is as firm as a stone, yea, as hard.
None of this has anything to do with a justification for letting innocent people be killed. What are you doing? You're muted. Okay, now you're unmuted.
Yeah, I know I'm muted, man. You don't want to hear it. The sword of him that is layeth at him can...
Okay, you're just trolling at this point. You have absolutely nothing to offer, so instead... we read 20 verses for absolutely no reason. None of those verses say anything about anything. It's just God jerking himself off. Goodbye. What a dishonest turd. Holy fucking shit. Man. Well, I'm glad I stuck around for a little bit, but I am going to go now. Even though I do have guests waiting. You skipped the answer. No, I literally read the entire thing, and it's nothing. Nothing at all. There's nothing there. I encourage anybody to go and read it. You will find that there's absolutely nothing there. Though the sword reaches, it does not avail. Oh, that's why it's okay to let Satan kill innocent people. No, there's absolutely nothing there. So... oh, he wants back up.
You're lying.
Yeah,
man.
so why is it okay?
You gotta read.
Explain what in that verse makes it okay for God to let innocent people be killed. Explain it.
So, are you going to skip the middle part that gives you the answer, or you want to listen?
Explain it. All you're doing is saying
it's not
read
okay.
It.
Is the point? It's not okay. That's the point.
Okay,
But
your God is evil. Goodbye.
Who's going to stop? Who is going to stop Satan?
Not God, because God had the opportunity to, and God refused.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
So has science answered the question of the origins of existence yet? And how has science answered that question?
Has science answered the questions for the origins of existence? No, nobody has.
Exactly. So how can it be said that science has disproven the possibility of God? I'm not saying that there is a God, but if science has failed to explain the origins of the existence of the universe and us, then likewise science cannot disprove the existence of a God or some type of creator. Now, yeah, that's my point, at least.
Well, that was never my point, so I don't understand.
Well, I think that if you're going to say that God does not exist, I think that is your burden, not you personally, but science.
There's no evidence of God.
But saying that there was one point in time when there was no evidence of bacteria, and then we invented the microscope, and then we were able to see it. Science is
not knowing something isn't evidence that something exists. If something exists, declaring that something exists is a positive claim. You do not affirm positive claims by saying that other claims are not proven.
Not knowing that something exists is a neutral position, because science says that you can either verify it or you can't. And if you don't know something, that means you haven't verified it yet. And science has been unable to verify or at least disprove the existence of God. I'm not saying that science...
Nor could it, in principle, ever do that. Do you think that you have evidence of God?
No, I don't. But I think that the burden... I think that the burden rests with those who are trying to disprove the existence of God. Obviously, if we look...
Well, I don't do that. The Christian God... I don't do that. The Christian God definitely doesn't exist, but God could exist.
Right. I mean, I think it's worth highlighting that people have been asking this question, as long as we can remember. You have different gods, you have different deities, different entities have been worshipped by different populations from different parts of the world. And I think that if you look at it from a Hegelian perspective, I think that the part of the world that you came from might dictate the entity that you worship, or the god, whether it's the rivers in East Asia, or the sun god in Egypt. The common denominator is that people have been asking this question, and that in of itself might suggest that there is a god or a creator, if there's this urgent desire to answer this question. And it's perplexing. I don't know that we'll...
Okay, Ben, I don't care. And I said I was going to go 20 minutes ago, so I'm going to do that now. I'll see you tomorrow, everybody. Oh man, that had some rough moments, YouTube, I'm not going to lie. Now I got the oh wait, we can do infinity YouTube. Look at that. That's cool. Dang, I like that. Let's get that right. Yeah, right there. That's cool. Sewer slide. I gave you $5. I love you. You're welcome. Well, thank you. I didn't notice that, but I believe you. So I don't know. Thanks, I guess. To infinity and beyond. Anyways, can I pull up there's the chat. So now the chat is on YouTube along with the chat. I don't know. I'm just saying words at this point. I'm going to go, everybody. I got stuff to do. Goodbye. No outro music, sorry. I'm using OBS, not StreamYard.